The map of Antarctica that almost everyone carries in their head is not, in any meaningful sense, a map of a continent. It is a map of a lid, and the land it conceals has a geography entirely of its own. That lid averages around 2 kilometers in thickness, and across much of the continent it runs considerably deeper still. Beneath it are things that no human being has ever laid eyes on, and almost certainly never will. Mountain ranges, complete and unweathered. Hundreds of lakes holding liquid water. Valleys that plunge far below sea level. But the strangest thing down there is not any single feature. It is an entire landscape that has no business still existing. In October 2023, a team led by Professor Stuart Jamieson of Durham University published something remarkable in the journal Nature Communications. Buried beneath roughly 2 kilometers of East Antarctic ice, they had mapped a landscape carved by rivers. It stretches roughly 300 kilometers across, covering an area of about 32,000 square kilometers. That is an area larger than Belgium, and not 1 meter of it has ever been seen by a living person. Within it sit 3 river-carved upland blocks, separated by deep troughs, alongside ridges, valleys, and 2 deep fjords. Researchers have compared its scale and character to the hills and valleys of North Wales. And this is where the story turns, because by every reasonable expectation, that landscape should not have survived at all. An ice sheet is not a blanket resting gently on the ground. It is a slow and relentless grinding machine. Under its own weight, it creeps outward, dragging rock and debris across the bedrock beneath it. Over millions of years, that process scours valleys into smooth troughs and grinds high ground down toward flat plain. 2 kilometers of moving ice, pressing down for over 30 million years, should have erased those valleys completely. To understand why they're still there, you have to go back to a time before there was any ice at all. These valleys were cut by rivers, running across a warm and vegetated Antarctic landmass. Long before the cold arrived, they drained toward the coastline that had only recently opened up as the supercontinent Gondwana tore itself apart. Then roughly 34 million years ago, at the boundary geologists call the Eocene-Oligocene transition, the world cooled sharply. Ice began to gather first on the high ground, on buried ranges like the Gambutsev subglacial mountains, and spread outward from there. Within a geological instant, the entire continent disappeared beneath a sheet of ice that has never fully left. Jamieson has described what happened next in strikingly simple terms. The arrival of the ice here was less like a bulldozer and more like switching on an enormous freezer above the land. The valleys were not destroyed, they were sealed and held exactly as they were for the next 34 million years. The scientific meaning of that preservation is quieter than the romance of it, and considerably more unsettling. For a landscape to survive like this, the base of the ice above it can never have warmed enough to melt and move. Warm-based ice slides and sliding ice grinds. Cold-based ice simply sits there, locked in place, doing nothing at all. Which means that whenever this ice sheet shifted between its larger and smaller states, those transitions were not gradual. They were rapid, leaving no time for warm ice to settle in and erase what lay beneath. For 2 years, that discovery stood as an extraordinary but isolated find, one preserved fragment beneath an enormous sheet. Then in March 2026, a follow-up study led by Durham University and published in Nature Geoscience made the picture far larger. The work was done from the air, with radar flown aboard a twin Otter aircraft across enormous stretches of empty ice. What the radar returned were remarkably flat, buried surfaces, appearing again and again beneath the ice. They stretch across roughly 3,500 kilometers of East Antarctica, from Princess Elizabeth Land all the way to George V Land. These are not scattered fragments. They are the remains of a continental surface, smoothed by large rivers before any ice existed. And some of those surfaces are believed to have formed over 80 million years ago, back when East Antarctica and Australia were not separate places at all, but a single continuous landmass. That terrain has now remained largely intact, sealed and unchanged for well over 30 million years. Which brings this story, unavoidably, back to the present day. The landscape found in 2023 sits only around 350 kilometers from the present edge of the ice sheet. In continental terms, that is not deep interior. That is close to the edge. The researchers raise the implication directly, and they raise it carefully, in conditional terms. Under continued warming, atmospheric conditions could approach those of 34 to 14 million years ago. That was a world somewhere between 3 and 7 degrees Celsius, warmer than the one we currently live in. Should that happen, the ice margin could eventually retreat far enough that these ancient surfaces would begin to emerge again. It is worth saying plainly that nothing about this landscape was ever lost, because nobody ever knew it was there to lose. It has simply been waiting, sealed under a lid, holding the shape of a warmer world that ended long before us. Those rivers ran across open ground for tens of millions of years before anything resembling a human being existed. They may run again one day, though not in any world that would still recognize our coastlines. So if that ice ever pulled back and revealed those valleys again, would you want to be alive to see it? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more journeys into the places we have never seen.